Today we're testing out a big new dual motor electric scooter. This is the Synergy Tsunami. When we say big, we mean it's physically a bit larger and roomier than other light heavyweight scooters and has a higher rider weight capacity, but without the scooter itself being heavier. So if you're a larger rider or maybe just have a thing for tall handlebars, lots of footroom, and high performance, you're gonna wanna stick around for this review. We've got the Tsunami's tested performance numbers, and we'll show you a couple other cool features it has that you won't usually find on this class of scooter. So wait, who is this company, Synergy? Well, they're a Canadian brand that have a couple retail locations in the US too. We recently tested their entry-level dual motor scooter, the Aviator 2.0. That one had flat-proof tires and a ton of performance per dollar. But this week we're riding the Tsunami, which has twice as much power, hydraulic disc brakes, and a smoother ride from 10-inch tubeless air-filled tires. So it's in the same performance category as scooters like the Visette 10 Plus, the Mantis King GT, and Apollo Phantom V2, among others. The Tsunami is built by a company that's made a ton of sharing scooters, including this one, the very first scooter I ever rode. It's not obvious looking at the Tsunami or even looking at the spec sheet, but there are a ton of design features that make this scooter a great fit for larger riders. The first thing I noticed riding it was just how tall the handlebars are. I'm 5 foot 10 inches tall, and to me the ideal handlebar height is about 40 inches or a little more, which is, the typical bar height in this class. At 41.5 inches above the deck, the Tsunami's bars are 1.5 inches higher than average and the tallest in this class. The deck is longest in class 2, more than 3 inches longer than the deck on the Visette 10 Plus. So physically, this is going to be a good fit from anybody who's my size, all the way up to about 6'4" and maybe beyond. Rider weight capacity is by far the highest in its class at 350 pounds, and this is a little mind-blowing. That's 20 pounds more than the weight limit of a Wolf King GT Pro. There are two features of the deck that make it feel even bigger than it is. The deck latch folds down so it doesn't get in the way, and the footrest is relatively flat, so that makes it easier to use. The Tsunami has full suspension with adjustable springs front and rear, so you can adjust them for your weight, though you need a special tool to adjust the spring without scratching the adjuster. I can't tell if the shocks have hydraulic damping or not, but if there is damping here, it's minimal and it would benefit from more. That said, when you hit a bump, it doesn't just bounce around endlessly like some scooters do. Oh, and here's one of the two unusual features that I promised you at the beginning of the video. It has tubeless 10-inch tires, which offer another advantage to heavier riders. Tubeless tires are more resistant to pinch flats if you hit a hard edge, but there's a twist to how these tires are mounted. You can take them off the rims with the tires still mounted and fully inflated. So if you wanted to swap out the hybrid off-road tires it comes with for some road tires, you can do it without even letting the air out of the tires or taking the tires off the rims, as long as you've got a spare set of rims around. This is a feature we've only ever seen on a couple Dualtron Beast scooters with 11-inch tires. Back at the top of the scooter, we see some other echoes of Dualtron. The handlebars have a crossbar that's sort of similar to the one on the Dualtron Mini. Structurally, I don't think it needs to be there, but I love it because I grew up riding BMX bikes, and other people might love it because you can mount stuff to it. It's the same diameter as the bars themselves, so any accessory you'd normally mount to the handlebars like lights or a phone mount are going to fit right up there. The control buttons are familiar looking too. You've got a headlight switch and turn signal switches that have indicator lights that light up to let you know they're on, and there's a horn button down below. The Eco Turbo button and single dual switches don't have indicator lights on them, but we hear that feature is coming soon. The display is similar to a QSS4, but is easier to read in direct sunlight. And because the Tsunami uses low-profile brake reservoirs, you can adjust the trigger down fairly close to the brakes, so the throttle is more comfortable and easier to use on long rides. There are 3 gears or, speed settings, but when you first get the scooter, all of the modes feel fairly mild because the P settings are tuned down a bit for safety and legality in certain countries. This is great when you're getting to know the scooter, but once you're warmed up and looking for more, you'll find the P settings are locked. It's not in the owner's manual, but the code is 2626. We'll put our recommended P settings in our written review on our website. Once the P settings are turned all the way up, performance really comes alive. Other than changing performance, you can also enable cruise control or switch between zero start and kick to start. One criticism of the P settings is that the initial acceleration is either a little too strong or a little too soft. I wish they had a Goldilocks setting sort of right in the middle. My advice is to start off with soft start engaged, and then once you get to know the scooter very well, you can switch over to power start and then save soft start for rainy days. The overall ride feel is light and nimble, not wiggly at all at high speed, but also not ultra stable, so it's definitely a good idea to keep both hands on the bars anytime you're moving, but that's also true of any scooter. There are a surprising number of Dualtron-esque features in the build of the scooter. The shape of the stem, with the stem lights embedded in the side, even the handlebar mount. We're pleased that one standard Dualtron feature isn't included, and that's the stem creak. In fact, the stem is not only silent, it's surprisingly stiff for one with a clamp-style latch like this has. I was worried when I saw that the double clamp for the stem had just one lever and not two, but it's just plain faster and better than the double lever type. It's also got this cool spring that does a similar thing to the latest Dualtron scooters, sliding the clamp into place automatically. Here's the second unusual feature I promised at the beginning of the video. The Tsunami has more swag lights than most of its non-Dualtron peers and uses an app, not a remote, to control them. I'm on the fence as to whether it's nicer to have a remote like a Dualtron or use an app like the Tsunami does. I guess the nice thing about an app is you never lose it and you always have it with you. Oh, and here's the really unusual part. It has a feature where you can make it pulse to music. I tried it on a couple different songs and not every song is really compatible because you need the sound to pretty much start and stop to make the lights feel synced to the music. Once you have the lights set the way you want them, you can just toggle them on and off separately from the headlight by using this button here. If you want to take it off-roading, you're in luck because it comes standard with hybrid off-road tires and higher than average ground clearance at 6.5 inches from the ground to the kickstand. The kickstand itself is made out of aluminum, so be careful with it. I tend to abuse kickstands by using them to turn the scooter around, and I managed to bend this one a little bit. The Tsunami's pretty decent in the rain with a water resistance rating of IP54, but I don't recommend riding the Tsunami in a Tsunami like I did during the range test. There we go. You're riding the Tsunami in a Tsunami. Only 20 miles to go. What could go wrong? But light rain should be fine as long as you stay out of puddles. The charge ports are on top of the deck, so they're well protected from falls, but there's one thing to watch out for. While I love the look and feel of the metal covers, be careful not to nudge them into the socket sideways or you could cause a short. Charging time is 10 hours with the one charger it comes with, or you can cut that down to 5 hours by adding a second one. Not bad considering that the battery is relatively large, exactly the same size as the one in the Mantis King GT. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want to know more about the Tsunami, we've got links in this video's description, including ESG exclusive coupon codes. The Tsunami's tested top speed is 38.4 miles per hour, a few miles per hour slower than the comparison scooters. But trust me, if you haven't been 38 miles per hour on a scooter before, it feels like about as fast as you'd want to go on 10-inch tires. Tested range was also typical for this class of scooter at 30 miles. For most people, that means you can go out and ride for an hour to an hour and a half before you run out of battery. So if you have a 20-minute commute, you definitely won't need to bring your charger to work with you. Acceleration is also on par with other scooters in its class, though not quite as quick as the Mantis or Visette. Like all dual motor scooters, you're gonna make it to the top of any hill without a problem, though in this case, about 1.4 seconds behind the very quickest scooter in its class, the Visette 10 Plus. The Tsunami uses hydraulic brakes that don't have any branding on them, but they look a lot like nut brakes and feel more firm than the nut and zoom brakes that we're used to. This is the second time we've seen this type of brakes, and we really like them. The 140mm discs and regenerative braking bring it to a stop from 15 miles per hour in a respectable 10.4 feet. Like the setting for initial acceleration, I wish there was one more setting for regen in between the minimum setting and the zero regen, because if you just want to slow down a little bit, the regen ramps up and feels a little too strong. The hydraulic brakes are so strong, you can just turn regen off altogether if you want and still stop with one finger on each lever. Its 52-inch long folded length is 2 inches longer than the Mantis King GT, so it's going to be a tight fit into the trunk of most cars. I'm going to stop here for a second and point out something ESG has been doing for 3 years now, but we don't usually talk about. These measurements right here are actual measurements we take ourselves and not ones from the spec sheet, and I'll tell you why that's important in just a second. Whenever it's possible for us to physically measure anything, we're going to measure it and then give you our tested number and not some number from a spec sheet. And here's an example of why that matters. Our tested weight of the Tsunami was 77.3 pounds, but the specified weight is 88 pounds, and that's a meaningful difference when you're picking out a scooter. We find differences like this all the time, which is a good reason to not forget to subscribe and check out our website for the world's biggest database of real tested data on electric scooters. Pros of the Synergy Tsunami include 10-inch tubeless tires that are resistant to pinch flats and are easy to swap, more room for the rider plus an ultra-high rider weight limit, and nice swag lights with app control. Cons include the throttle isn't as smooth as scooters with sine wave controllers, and the roomy deck means